Blog Talk Radio.
Forward until dawn, laboring for your freedom, singing secrets freely to those who would lend ear. Beware of ciphers dressed in partial truth, decorated in luxuriance and sold as substance for profit, candy for the masses. Truth shared is sacred duty, should be freely given for good of revelation, catalyst to awaken others, goad them to remembrance with no expectation of tribute or reward. Condemned by the warden, harassed by slaves, the razor wire, steel doors, windows dressed with bars, are incorporated to mind and unseen in periphery. for those who disregard their bondage, not comprehending their remand. The overseers celebrate the imposition of a matrix which fosters the illusion of freedom, granting access to excess and pleasure to those quarantined by duress and false liberation. Those revealing mystery are designated insane, their annihilation sought by sovereigns in charge of asylum, regulating the chicken coop, holding all victims to charade. Complicit in their own oblivion and that of their families, compelled to police self, pledged to betray loved ones for meager scraps of leftover residuals from buffet meals where high-level puppets congregate and dance to the devil's symphony. The Lord of this world wears all masks, presenting himself benevolent to those who cannot make sense of the depth of the illusion. Funding both sides of the grand war, each battle a momentous party, horrific jubilation as pawns strategically placed, cannon fodder for a good slaughter, brother enemies contending ideas, disgruntled by the Orwellian division of made-up definition, propaganda inciting contests and the spilling of blood, a clandestine ritual, sacrifice of victim decimation for the feathered serpents, aggregated, feeding in mad carrion frenzy. I whisper to them who would attend, this way to paradise for those seeking, who are led to digress, desiring freedom, truth, remembrance, more than life, and whom are willing to sacrifice self and family on the altar of salvation, even at the expense of this world. Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers. I'm your host, Zen Garcia, and that was a new poem that I just recently wrote, and I wanted to share it with you and to get feedback from the listening audience. It's been a while, but now that I've had some time, I plan on putting together some more poems, and I think I'll probably even share this one in the new book, perhaps ending it with, this prose. But anyways, as I said, I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is fallenangels.tv. It's 6/15/2013. It's a 5 p.m. broadcast. We're streaming out of the East Coast, United States, near Athens, Georgia. I welcome all of you and thank you for your patronage and your fellowship and for lending your time and your ear to me and giving me a chance to share with you the strange things that I've come to know. I appreciate your audience and the fact that any of you would be even willing to listen to my discourse and to hear what I say is just really mind-blowing to me. And so I appreciate you and know that it's a two-way dialogue, and that if you have any questions and certainly any concerns or any information that you would like to share with me, that I appreciate the discourse and the dialogue and the companionship, the friendship, and that I am certainly accessible, and I do try to reply as immediately as I can. I am busy doing all the various endeavors that I am caught up in, especially with my radio work and my research and the information that I'm writing. But I am taking the next few months off to try to catch up on some of the things that I've been wanting to read, just spending some time outside with my cats and, writing some poetry, reading some books, and just kind of soaking in the sunshine. And so that's nice. It's nice to have a brief reprieve, a sabbatical of sorts, and taking a moment or some moments anyways to smell the roses. Today I'm going to be talking about some secrets which I feel are veiled and contained within a lot of what is the apocryphal and the extra-biblical text, some of the pseudepigraphal. And it's not going to be anything that is not, really unfamiliar, especially to those that have been listening to my show and have read my books, because I've shared these things in the things that I've written about and the things that I've spoken about over the course of the 5 years now that I've been doing this radio broadcast. We began in 2008, and it was shortly thereafter that I launched FallenAngels.tv as well. And it was in 2010 that I published Lucifer, Father of Cain, and Awakened to the New World Order, my fourth and my fifth book. A lot of the things that I'm going to be covering today are explicit and expound upon the scope and the context of what will be the release of the new book, Skyfall, Angels of Destiny, and some of the things that I'm going to be reading about, because I'm going to be focused on some short parables, some things that are written in the Gospel of Thomas and other places. And in reading those, we will discuss interpretation afterwards. And really, they are like short poems in themselves, and they're very introspective, very profound in the things that have been revealed and the things that have been written, and they say a lot in a very short space of time, which is, the way that Christ works as far as his ministry. He shared a lot of stories and a lot of really poems and prose that were profoundly, deeply laced with meaning, and for those that did not have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, the mind to understand, they just could not grasp the illusions that he was metaphorically expressing, and the secrets that he was symbolically sharing with the masses. And he said that, I speak to them in parables, for they seeing see not, and they hearing hear not, and neither do they understand. And so we're going to delve into some of that today, and to look into some of the things that have been written. Specifically, I'm going to bring forth some of the parables that have been shared in the Gospel of Thomas. And the Gospel of Thomas is a very interesting book in that it's very old. It's considered a Gnostic text, and it's a book that Thomas supposedly written or wrote after the ascension of Christ, after he had descended down into Sheol and led Adam and all the patriarchs that were therein contained, broke open the gates of brass and broke open the doors of iron, and led them to the Archangel Michael, who then took them to the Arturian lake, and then led them into paradise, into New Jerusalem, the city of God, where they had rest, so to speak. Rest not in that they were asleep, but rest in that they were under the protection and the guard the care of the angels that watch over and protect the righteous and the elect in the place of paradise. And so that was some of the things that I spoke about in the prior show when I spoke and talked about the moments after death and dying, and shared with you scriptures that were contained within what was the original 80-book canon, and specifically Second Esdras, which is now considered to be part of the apocryphal text or the secretive text, but they were part of the original 80-book canon once it was compiled and released to the masses. And that a lot of those books, even those that were considered as, being inspired by the councils that decided upon what was worthy and what wasn't, that even some of those were then secretively displaced and hidden away from the masses, so that, in my opinion, certain knowledge would be hidden, and that certain things would be left unknown, and much has been stripped away from us as far as having the privilege and the benefit of being able to read so much of what the early church and those that were the early followers and the disciples of Christ, because during that time, before the canon process and the division of what was considered inspired and what wasn't by the Roman Catholic Church and the church authorities of the particular day and age, it's my opinion that they had an agenda, and that agenda was to steal away and to keep secret a lot of what they did not want you to know about. Again, this is my opinion, but there's so much that once you do look into and read from some of these other books, even if it's just the Apocrypha, so much is revealed. Even in just the Wisdom of Solomon, the books of Enoch, that these texts are just full. They are full of secrets, and they can completely change the foundation and the belief systems, the truth that many people base their faith upon, because they fill in so much of the data and so much of the detail of what has been stripped out, what has been left out and purposely kept from you. And even like with the early life of Christ and his childhood, and like there's a story where Christ at an early age was accused by the masses of pushing this one child off of a building, and they were blaming him as being a murderer. And he resurrected the child and asked them and had him tell his parents and the people that were accusing him of murder that he wasn't the one that had pushed him off, and that he had fallen and his death was accidental. And so, stories like that, which give detail on the authority of Christ, of our King and our Savior, our Lord, I want to personally know about these things and to read these things. And it's my opinion that they give you a fuller picture of who our King and Lord is. And so those stories are part of the Protevangelium of James, the forgotten books of the Bible, the forbidden books of Eden, the infancy Gospels, and there's many of them. There's lots and lots of stories of the early childhood of Christ, even stories of Mary using the bathwater and the swaddling clothes a baby Yahushua to heal other children that were sick. And so, these stories are amazing to me, and they give confirmation as to the divinity of Christ before ever coming into flesh embodiment. And so, but anyways, I want to touch upon something else here before I go into these stories, and this has to do with the contestation as to whether Alleluia, whether it is praise to Lucifer or praise to the Most High, and the differences. And I want to tell the listening audience that when I shared my opinion that it could have been linked to praise to Lucifer, that I was basing this on a dream that I had. I'm going to share this dream with you, and that I really should have done some research into this before announcing in my opinion. And because I've been sent a lot of information from both sides, from people that see it this way and people that see it the other way. And, looking at both of them, there's certainly a division, and it certainly looks like it could go either way. And so whether you choose to say the word or not, that's completely up to you. I'm not going to condemn you for such. I certainly will be weary in saying it only because of this dream that I had. And so the dream that I had was I was going to my mother's church, and they were having like a dinner. Well, it was early days, so I guess it would be a lunch. And there was a early church service, and they had me to bring food, and I was pushing a delivery cart, and I actually believe that I was in San Francisco, because it looked like San Francisco, which is weird because we never lived there. I never lived there with my parents, and but it reminded me of the terrain, the hills, the traffic, because I'm very familiar with the city. But anyways, it was a Presbyterian church, which is the kind of church that my mother and her family, as far as the Koreans, a lot of them are Presbyterian. And so I was pushing this food on this cart to the parking lot of the church, and once I got to the church, everybody was lined up into different lines. They were breaking up into groups to get a meal, and basically people had plates. They were in lines. They were going down, picking whatever it is that they wanted to get as far as food to have meal. And there was this praise music, and in the praise music over the loudspeakers, they were repeating over and over this, the Hallelujah and the other praise song. And in my mind, I was told that there was something wrong with this particular praise, and that I should be weary about it. And so in the dream, I found my mother and, the congregation, and my mother was part of the choir. And even in when she was alive, that was one of the things that she did. Her and her sisters, they were part of the choir, and they would sing with the church every Sunday, because they did go to church on Sundays. And my mom spent a lot of time, even in the evening, reading from the Word, reading the Bible, and then she would sing while she was in bed. And she would do this for hours. Those are some of my fondest memories of my, because both of my parents are since passed, but of my mother singing praise songs and just being worshipful in that way. And, I would listen to her in the evenings after meals and doing the things that I was doing, whether I was on the computer or not. But in the dream, I went up to my mother, after the chorus, because they were singing, again, they were saying the Hallelujah, and I had the dream where it said to be wary of that phrase. And so I went up to her at the end of the dream, and I told her, Mom, please be weary of saying that word. And I woke up afterwards. And for those that don't know, I'm a very lucid dreamer. And I share this story in this next book because I have, for a long time, had the ability to wake up in my dreams. And it's just something that has been part of my life. And I'm very, very conscious and very lucid within my dreaming. And I remember all of them, even, if I have 4 or 5 dreams during the night, I remember each different episode. And there was a time where I used to use a microcassette recorder. I used to write them down initially, but then I learned to use a microcassette recorder to capture the essence of my dreams. And so, having done this for a number of years, I had developed the ability to recall my dreams in great detail, and also to wake up while within my dreaming, and to I used to fly in my dreams, and like when I first had begun going lucid in my dreams, I tried to fly like a chicken. I would flap my arms, which is really silly, and for those that are also lucid dreamers, you will understand why it is that I say that, because in dreaming, when you're on the other side and you're in your dreaming body, you're not limited to physical laws, and things work completely different. To do anything within the dream, you have to extend your intent, your will, and it's your mind, your willpower that makes things happen. And basically, it occurs the same way in our physical world, in that we have to put forth our intent and our willpower to manifest a dream, that we go through a series of procedures in order to bring certain things, like bringing goals, even on working on a book or a painting, that you do certain things to accomplish your goals. But in dreaming, it's instantaneous, and it has to do with focus of your will and focus of your intent. And so those that have experienced what I'm talking about, you will know of what I'm saying. But I've my whole life, I have had special capacity to dream, and I share more of what I'm talking about here. I've shared it previously in shows that I've done on this broadcast on blogtalkradio.com, where I've talked about lucid dreaming and that side of it, and I've shared my story about all that as well. But in this new book, I spend a whole chapter 15, and I also I warn people as to trying to accomplish things like this, because it could be considered occultic, which a lot of people would say that. But there are people that are natural born dreamers, and this is just things that happen to you without even trying to accomplish it. But there was a time in my earlier life where I would practice dreaming in order to go lucid and also to awaken my consciousness. But I no longer do these things, but I still have that capacity. I can't help being conscious in dreaming. That's just part of who I am and part of my life now. And so, but anyway, so I just wanted to share that with you because certainly there's a lot of contention over the use of the word, and you know, I just wanted to clarify that I've not really done research on the subject. I was only sharing my opinion based upon the stream, but that certainly there are people and groups and individuals that see it both ways. I'm going to address it basically like the contestation on Cain and whether you believe that he was a child of the devil or not. I don't think it has any bearing on salvation, especially if you're doing it out of ignorance and out of love of the Father and the Son, that they that they know who you're trying to praise, but that certainly I don't want to be involved personally myself in any kind of idolatry, and I don't want to be tricked or deceived, because even with things like Christmas and Easter and people that celebrate those kind of holidays, that I certainly think it's a good thing that we have holidays where people recognize and celebrate Christ and the things that he has done for us. As far as like Christmas and Easter, even though those dates and those particular ceremonies are pagan in nature. Again, but I'm going to address this kind of thing as being kind of that people celebrate Christmas not for Santa Claus, which is also a devilish figure. And if you look into the history of Santa Claus, that's a pagan kind of thing too. But that people celebrate, especially Christians, celebrate Christmas and Easter in its association to Christ, and that they share celebration of those holidays and those particular days as in being thankful to Christ and for the things that he has done for us in dying on the cross to extend salvation to each one of us. And we're absolutely grateful to him and to the Father for our redemption and for even our chance to have a return to our first estate. But that's certainly the mainstream churches in different ways that they have been infiltrated, and that some of the things that we do without even realizing it, without having knowledge, that a lot of us in ignorance have been led astray and deceived in certain ways, especially the mainstream churches. But those that know better, that we are held to account for certain things. But anyways, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go into the Gospel of Thomas, and I'm going to begin with a passage which will establish and lead the premise of this particular the things that we're about to go into. It says this: "These are the hidden words that the living Jesus spoke, and that Didymus Judas Thomas wrote down. And he said, 'Whoever finds the meaning of these words will not taste death.'" Again, remember that this book was written by Thomas after the ascension of Christ from Sheol, and that once he returned from Sheol, because some of the other Gnostic books that are part of the Nag Hammadi collection, the Apocalypse of James, the Secret Book of John, these different books are also revelations, books that were written after the ascension of Christ. And that in these particular books, Christ says to the apostles and to his disciples, I'm no longer going to speak to you in parable, but I'm going to tell you the secret straight up and help you to understand before I go to be with my Father, before I take a seat at the right hand of the Father. And so this is one of those books. I do also implore you to look at some of these other texts that I had made mention of, even though they are considered Gnostic, which for some reason is a dirty word, even though it's my opinion that the Cathars were hunted down and slaughtered for not having to use the Catholic Church as intercessory for their contact and their experience, their relationship with the Father and the Son, and that the authorities that some of the church authorities that day and age, they wanted to control that because they benefited and that they profited off of being the intercessors and being the intermediary and not allowing people to have direct access to even a large part of what was, the scriptures, and that even before the Bible was printed and made available to the masses, people had to rely on the priests and the church for access to the gospel. And so a lot of things have been controlled for profit. So, anyway, let's go ahead and go into some of the things that I wanted to talk about, because these are very interesting, and as I said, they're very poetic in nature. And I'll tell you the different verses that I'm going to be reading from. Let me go ahead and put a link to the text I'm going to be covering in the chat room for those that do have access. If you would like to follow along. All right. Verse 2. Jesus said, "Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all." Now, it's my opinion that for those that have eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the mind to understand, that Christ has revealed over and over through his word, and specifically in passages like Matthew chapter 13, revealed that there's two seed lines on the planet, that the devil has his own children, and that there's been a war going on between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent since prior to our coming into the flesh. And that we also had part to play as far as pre-existence, predestination, and pre-election, that we were with him and the Father before having come into flesh embodiment. And that these are some of the secrets that are contained and you'll see that revealed in some of these parables that we're going to be reading today. But that, let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. Become troubled because once you have revelation of truth and you realize that there's a war going on and that the controllers and the rulers of this war, of this world, that they're trying to slaughter the seed of Adam and slaughter the masses, that it becomes troublesome in knowing that you cannot trust government, that you can't trust the doctors because of the vaccines. You can't trust the people that process our foods, that give us, water, that they're putting toxins and poisons into all the things that we eat and drink, even into the air that we breathe. Next line, when he becomes troubled, he will be astonished. Astonished because once you have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and a mind to understand all the real nature of the world and the depth of the evil, the degree of the insanity that we're dealing with as a people, as a race here on this planet. And when I say race, I mean human race against the hybrid races. That, in my mind, that's what is being revealed here. And when it says, and he will rule over all, in my opinion, that is about becoming, again, remembrance as far as who you are in being a son of God. Because once you return to knowledge of self and you know who you are, you can't be tricked and deceived. And the powers and the principalities no longer have rule over you, because we are not of this world any longer, and that we know that we are only here temporary, and that we are under the grace and the protection of the Father and the Son, which, returning back to our first estate, we are going to judge the angels, specifically the fallen ones, for the things that they've done to us, in slaughtering us and leading us astray and in deceiving the masses. And so that, in my opinion, is what Christ is speaking about here. I'm not going to be explaining all of these, but I will go into, some of them are pretty self-explanatory, but for those that are, pretty intricate and profound, I will give time to share commentary. All right, verse 3. Jesus said, if those who lead you say to you, see, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. See, this is again the same thing. It's about knowing self. The kingdom is inside you and is outside of you. That which is inside of us is our connecting link to Christ, because he is within us. He is the aspect of us that gives us consciousness, that gives us ability to sense, think, to contemplate, to imagine. He is that part of us that warms our body and gives us life, that aspect of ourselves which ties us to redemption and a chance for salvation, and to have a return to our first estate. It says, then you will become known. When we remember who we are and we embrace our spiritual side of ourselves, and we no longer just have priority on our flesh being and who we are as a physical people, but we realize that we're spiritual people and that we have an angelic nature that is caught up and trapped within the flesh, then we are empowered in realizing who we are. They also, the angels, will see that we have this realization, that we have this remembrance. And the Father and the Son, who have foreordained us and predestinated us to higher purpose, they will recognize and that they will utilize us as vessel for fulfillment of role and accomplishment, the mission that we are here to do. And if you don't have recognition of yourself, it says you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. Verse 4. Jesus said, "Do not tell lies and do not do what you hate, for all things are plain in the sight of heaven. For nothing hidden will not become manifest, and nothing covered will remain without being covered." That's basically everything, every act, every thought, every deed, everything that we do has consequence and repercussions. And so that's why we have to be weary of every act, because we are basically living prayer. And in living prayer, what we do with our focus, with our intent, whether it's of good or negative, that it has consequence. That energy is going to go out into the world and it's going to come back upon us. As whether it's dharma or karma, meaning positive energy or negative energy, everything we do, all our thoughts, our actions, behaviors, our deeds, they all have consequence. Jesus said, "I have cast fire upon the world, and see, I am guarding it until it blazes." When he came into the flesh, he brought the revelation of truth, knowledge that brings us all to remembrance. That is the fire that he cast upon the world, and he's guarding it until it blazes. It will blaze until the separation, the harvest, and then the righteous will have part in salvation and will be taken into paradise. And those that fell short of accomplishing their predestination and their foreordained role and mission as being sons of God, you will have part in with the fallen angels and being deceived and led astray. And so that's why it's important for you to waken up to who you are. Verse 12. The disciples said to Jesus, "We know that you will depart from us. Who is to be our leader?" Jesus said to them, "Wherever you are to go to James the righteous, for whose sake heaven and earth came into being." James became the leader of the church in Jerusalem, the half-brother of Christ. And so that's what it's speaking about here. Verse 15. Jesus said, "When you see one who was not born of woman, prostrate yourselves on your faces and worship him. That one is your Father." See, all of us were created, and we all, as sons of God, we've incarnated into flesh form. Christ is saying one who was not born of woman, meaning him and the Father, because they were the ones that were not ever created. Even the angels were created by the Father and the Son, but they are the creators. And so that is the Father, not born of woman. All right, going into next passage. Verse 16. Jesus said, "Men think perhaps that it is peace which I have come to cast upon the world. They do not know that it is dissension which I have come to cast upon the earth, fire, sword, and war. For there will be 5 in a house, 3 will be against 2, and 2 against 3, the father against the son, and the son against the father, and they will stand solitary." This is basically has to do with the separation of the wheat and the tares. That the gospel, revelation, the knowledge of truth, which he brought to all of us, that those that aspire to remembrance and that come to the knowledge of the truth that is contained within the gospel, that you will have realization that there is 2 bloodlines, 2 lineages, 2 peoples upon this planet, that one serves the devil and the other serves the Father and the Son, and that we certainly can be even of the same family. And that's why we have even those that are born of the same families, some serve Satan as their master, as their father, and some serve Christ and the Father. And that is whether you are of the seed of Cain, seed of the serpent, or seed of the woman. Because when he died on the cross, he extended salvation even to the Canaanite bloodline and to the Illuminati families that had up until that time been excluded from salvation. Remember, before the time of Christ, the children of Adam, they were implored to never mix, never marry into the lines of Cain. Verse 18. The disciples said to Jesus, "Tell us how our end will be." Jesus said, "Have you discovered then the beginning, that you look for the end? For where the beginning is, there will the end be. Blessed is he who will take his place in the beginning. He will know the end and will not experience death." The beginning referred to here is knowledge that you have a first world age embodiment, and that you are a son of God, and that you are not just this flesh body, that we are not just these physical embodiments, that there's an aspect of ourselves that was with the Father and the Son prior to our coming into flesh form, and prior to our parents making love and creating for us the flesh vehicle that we then became housed in, wearing that the physical flesh body, much like an armor of soul or spirit. Verse 19, and this, also has to do with Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, where he says that he knew Jeremiah before he ever entered into the womb of his mother, and that he had foreordained him to be a prophet unto the nations. I'm going to try to get through some of these quickly, because I know we're going to run out of time, and I wanted to cover quite a few. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just read 4 or 5, and then I'll make commentary on them. 19. Jesus said, "Blessed is he who came into being before he came into being. If you become my disciples and listen to my words, those stones will minister to you. For there are 5 trees for you in paradise which remain undisturbed summer and winter, and whose leaves do not fall. Whoever becomes acquainted with them will not experience death." Verse 20. The disciples said to Jesus, "Tell us what the kingdom of heaven is like." He said to them, "It is like a mustard seed. It is the smallest of all seeds. But when it falls on tilled soil, it produces a great plant and becomes a shelter for birds of the sky." Let me check the chat room real quick, make sure that we have good contact. Georgia, I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you about your dream. And I'll have to look into the chapters and the verses that you're sharing with me, but I will do so, and I will make commentary on that in the next broadcast. All right, continuing. All right, verse 22. Jesus saw infants being suckled. He said to his disciples, "These infants being suckled are like those who enter the kingdom." They said to him, "Shall we then as children enter the kingdom?" Jesus said to them, "When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, and when you make the male and the female one and the same, so that the male not be male, nor the female female, and when you fashion eyes in place of an eye, and a hand in place of a hand, and a foot in place of a foot, and a likeness in place of a likeness, then will you enter the kingdom." All right, this is very cryptic, so I'm going to stop here. Basically, Christ is talking about your higher self, which is that angelic part of you that pre-existed and had embodiment as a spiritual being before entering into the flesh. He's talking about joining your spiritual nature with that of your physical, the above with the below. When you make the two one, when you make the inside like the outside like the inside, the male and the female, just like Adam and Eve, after they were created in paradise and Eve was split off from him, they lost their bright natures and they lost their immortality. But in joining together, because when we are in our angelic nature, we will be both male and female, that the angels are hermaphroditic. That's what this is talking about here. All right. Verse 23. Jesus said, "If the flesh came into being because of spirit, it is a wonder. But if spirit came into being because of the body, it is a wonder of wonders. Indeed, I am amazed at how this great wealth has made its home in this poverty." See, he's speaking about our spiritual natures again, that the flesh was created for our spiritual natures and not our spiritual natures created for the flesh. The body was made to house us as spiritual beings. It says, "I am amazed at how this great wealth," talking about our spiritual natures, "has made its home in this poverty." The poverty is our flesh embodiment, because this is a fallen state of being, and we are in a fallen world, in a fallen form. But that it's only temporary, that we have paradise to return to. All right, skipping to verse 39. Jesus said, "The Pharisees and the scribes have taken the keys of knowledge, gnosis, and hidden them. They themselves have not entered, nor have they allowed to enter those who wish to. You, however, be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves." This is what I was speaking about when I opened the broadcast, talking about how those that were the church authorities, those that were the intercessories between you and God, between the masses and the Father and the Son, they have taken the keys of knowledge and hidden them. Basically, Christ is telling you exactly what I told you, that it was not because certain things were not inspired or that they weren't and shouldn't have been included in the gospel. Those things, the divisions and the canon process, were to keep the secrets from you. The stripping away of all these extra biblical books, because there were thousands of them, not just 66. There were tens of thousands of books that were decimated, hidden, eradicated, burned, and disappeared. And so that's why it's important for us to study some of these other things, because they contain the keys of knowledge for which the Pharisees and the scribes have hidden. And Christ said here, they themselves have not entered, meaning that after they stripped away and kept all these books from you, they didn't use it to bring themselves to knowledge of themselves, nor to bring themselves to remembrance on who they are, why they're here, and what all this is about. They instead kept themselves in darkness and blindness, and they did the same to the rest of the masses. And so Christ is saying here, you, however, be wise as serpents, because they're the serpents. They are of the Cain line. They are the children of the Nakash, as it says in Matthew chapter 13, and as innocent as doves. So he's basically telling you to study the secrets that have been stripped away from you, but keep your innocence and keep your eye on and your priority on the kingdom. Verse 40. Jesus said, A grapevine has been planted outside of the Father, but being unsound, it will be pulled up by its roots and destroyed. What grapevine is that? Going back to Matthew chapter 13, where it speaks about an enemy sneaking into the garden and planting the tares being the children of the wicked one, the being of the seed of the serpent. Same thing here. Christ is telling you, a grapevine has been planted outside of the Father, meaning that they are not children of the Father. And being unsound, it will be pulled up by its roots and destroyed. That will be done at harvest, when the wheat and the tares will be separated, the goat from the sheep, the wise from the unfoolish virgins. Same parable. Verse 42. Jesus said, become passers-by. What he's saying is, do not get caught up in the carnality, in the focus, in the indulgence of this world. Realize that we are only here for temporary stay, and that we, those that are of the righteous and the elect, that are part of the wheat, that are part of those that are counted in the books of life, that we are only passers-by of this world, and that our real home is in heaven with the Father and the Son. Oh, I said I wouldn't comment on each one of these, but it's hard not to do. All right, continuing. Verse 49. Jesus said, blessed are the solitary and elect, for you will find the kingdom. For you are from it, and to it you will return. Those, because, there's so many that are part of the masses that believe themselves to be part of the elect. Most of the people that go to church think that, once saved, always saved, and that no matter what they do, that they can't be excluded from salvation. But salvation is for the few. It's for a minor few, and that it won't be, not everybody will be included, and that you have to separate yourself, seek out the kingdom, come to remembrance, make yourself a disciple, bring the kingdom as priority in your life, live it and not just say it, be it and not just act like it. That's what Christ is talking about, because everybody thinks that they're going to be part of the elect and part of the righteous, but it is but for a few. There's another passage in this text that says, I will call you, one from 1,000, two from 10,000. All right, verse 50. Jesus said, if they say to you, where did you come from? Say to them, we came from the light, the place where the light came into being on its own accord and established itself and became manifest through their image. If they say to you, it is you, say, we are its children, we are the elect of the living Father. If they ask you, what is the sign of your Father in you? Say to them, it is movement and repose. Again, this is going back to Christ being the first Adam, as being the light of the world, and that we were created in the Father and the Son's image, that we are that light, and that light that is Christ is within us, is what gives us consciousness, is what gives us ability in being, and that it's what animates our flesh body, that without that light, without that aspect of Christ within us, that our bodies are nothing but dust. Verse 56. Jesus said, Whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse, and whoever has found a corpse is superior to the world. This is the same thing. Once you realize who you are, once you realize that you are of a spiritual nature and that this is a fallen world, you realize that this place is a place of the dead. This is the kingdom of the dead, and that our bodies rule here. The powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, they rule here. That we are just visiting, that our real reward and our real place of habitation has to do with being with the Father and the Son in paradise. 57. Jesus said, "The kingdom of the Father is like a man who had good seed. His enemy came by night and sowed weeds among the good seed. The man did not allow them to pull up the weeds. He said to them, 'I am afraid that you will go intending to pull up the weeds and pull up the wheat along with them. For on the day of the harvest, the weeds will be plainly visible, and they will be pulled up and burned.'" Going back to Matthew chapter 13, to Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. "I will put enmity between you, between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent." It all goes back to there's two bloodlines, two lineages, one of Adam and Christ, the other of the devil, the wicked one. All right, continuing. Verse 58. Jesus said, "Blessed is the man who has suffered and found life." Jesus said to her, "I am he who exists from the undivided. I was given some of the things of my Father. I am your disciple. Therefore I say, if he is destroyed, he will be filled with light. But if he is divided, he will be filled with darkness." Again, this goes to your spiritual aspect. And in aligning to the light that is within you. Because if you realize that you are that light and you align with it, then you will be a representative of Christ, a disciple of Christ, and you will be of the elect and of the righteous. But if you don't aspire to living for that light, and you live in sin and darkness, and you commit evil and wickedness, and live for self-indulgence and self-glory, then you will be like the devil. And your house, meaning your spirit and your physical, will be divided, and you will be filled with darkness. All right, I'm going to read 4 or 5 of them and then comment. Verse 63. Jesus said, "There was a rich man who had much money. He said, 'I shall put my money to use so that I may sow, reap, plant, and fill my storehouse with produce, with the result that I shall lack nothing.' Such were his intentions, but that same night he died. Let him who has ears hear." Again, it's not about the physical. It's about the spiritual. Verse 65. He said there was a good man who owned a vineyard. He leased it to tenant farmers so that they might work it and he might collect the produce from them. He sent his servants so that the tenants might give him the produce of the vineyard. They seized his servant and beat him, all but killing him. The servant went back and told his master. The master said, "Perhaps he did not recognize them." He sent another servant. The tenants beat this one as well. Then the owner sent his son and said, "Perhaps they will show respect to my son," because the tenants knew that it was he who was the heir to the vineyard. They seized him and killed him. Let him who has ears hear. This is the story of the patriarchs that, in representing Christ, came to this world to tell the people of the kingdom, of paradise, which awaits the righteous and the elect. But the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, those who serve the New World Order, they killed the patriarchs and they killed the Son. Verse 84. Oh, I might get through this pretty quick. Jesus said, "When you see your likeness, you rejoice, but when you see your images which came into being before you, and which neither die nor become manifest, how much will you have to bear?" Yeah, I've only got a few more, so I'm going to be able to comment on each one of these. All right, this again is speaking about who we are, who we were before coming into flesh embodiment, before coming into this world as a fallen being, having lost, like Lucifer, like Adam and Eve, who were once immortal, bright-natured beings. They lost their immortality, and they took on flesh embodiment. Isaiah chapter 14 and Ezekiel chapter 28, they speak about how even Satan will die the death of a man, and that in his final embodiment, before Christ comes again to separate the wheat and the tares, the goat and the sheep, those from the left and those from the right, he will bring death to Satan and kill him in sight of the kings and queens, the rulers of this world that give themselves duty-bound to the New World Order, that wonder after the beast and say, who is like unto the beast, and who can contend with the beast? They will be shocked that their father, their God, the Baphomet, the pagan god, the idol that they worship, is brought to death in their sight and is brought to naught. And then they will realize their judgment, and they will realize how much they had been deceived and how much they will have to suffer. Truth Now asks for my email address. Yes. For those that would like to contact me directly, you can email me at zengarcia, ZENGARCIA 2010 @gmail.com. And for those of you that are interested in my books that can't afford them, I would be glad to send you a PDF copy, an electronic copy of either Lucifer, Father of Cain, my 4th book, or my 6th book, Sons of God, Who We Are, and Why We're Here, because I unveil in those 2 books all of these things that I'm speaking about here. All of the secrets, all of the truths, all of the revelations that the Father and the Son have led me to. Those 2 books, if you can read those 2 books, you will understand the Bible in a way that you never have before. Not only that, but that you will understand. Yes, Truth Now. He's asking me if I will bring Joan onto the show again. And I would certainly be honored and glad to. And so I will send her an email and ask her if she would be willing. But going back to commentary on these 2 books. And for me, it's not about money at all. It's just about getting the word out to all of you, sharing it with whomever you can. You're welcome to share those electronic copies with your entire family, with listservs, whatever. share it with whomever you would like, and get it out to people. Let them come to discernment on all these things. Help people to understand the gospel so that they can come to remembrance on who they are while they're here, what all of this is about. And so that in understanding the reality, the truth that is underlying all mythology, all of the world's religions, all of the even the paganism, the idolatry, even the Sumerian text, the Anunnaki, in understanding all of these things, people will come to know that the Father and Son are real, and that Christ died on the cross to bring us redemption and salvation, and to give us a chance to return to our first estate, that we are immortal beings, that we are sons of God, and that we find ourselves in fallen flesh form, in a fallen world that is under the rulership, the authority, and the temporary reign of the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, those of wickedness in high places. Satan and his minions, the seed of the serpent, the New World Order, they are only given temporary reign, temporary authority, and their time is almost up. That is the hope of the revelation of the truth that I reveal within the context of those two books. And I hope that people would read them so that you could understand the fullness of the story, the incredible story that is the gospel, the fullness of not only the Old and the foundation of the Old and the New Testament, but the truth that is contained within the extra-biblical books, the Nag Hammadi, even the Colburn Bible, all the different texts that I've so patiently extracted from and shared certain aspects with you, the pseudepigrapha, the apocryphal, all these different texts, because just as Christ said in that particular passage which I read from, the Pharisees, verse 39, the Pharisees and the scribes have taken the keys of knowledge, gnosis, and hidden them. They themselves have not entered, nor have they allowed to enter those who wish to. You, however, be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. Christ is telling you there that they have stolen knowledge from you. They have tried to hide the keys to the kingdom. And one of those aspects, one of those keys, which is a skeleton key to unlock so much of what is veiled within the Word, is knowledge that Lucifer, Satan, is the father of Cain, and that he is of the wicked one, and that an enemy sowed the tares into what was the Garden of Paradise, and that this enemy is at war with us even now. The other big secret, which I show and share within the context of my sixth book, Sons of God, who we are, why we're here, and what all of this is about, is that you are a son of God, and that you are an angel, and that you have a spiritual nature which connects you to the Father and the Son, and that you are in a fallen form, in a fallen world, in a fallen state of being, but that we do not have to identify with our physical aspects, nor with this world, that we can aspire to mission and role that has been foreordained for us and predestinated for each one of us as being a son of God. And when I say son of God, I mean sister of God too. It's not just about being male, but being a son of God is just that we have remembrance on who we are as being spiritual beings, and that we are in fallen form, in flesh embodiment, but that this is all just temporary, and that we have paradise to aspire to, and that we have a return to our first estate to look forward to a return to immortality, a return to our immortal bright nature, that original, the original nature that Adam and Eve were created in. That's our return to home. And that's what we have to look forward to. All right, we're going to finish this up. I've got just a couple more. All right, 4 more. Jesus said, verse 92, "Seek and you will find. Yet what you asked me about in former times, and which I did not tell you then, now I do desire to tell you, but you do not inquire after it." Basically, same thing as he said in Matthew chapter 13. "I will tell you things that have been kept secret since the foundation of the world." But most people, when they come into the flesh, they get caught up in the carnal aspects of the pleasures and the lusts of this world, and they no longer seek the higher things. They forget about their spiritual nature. They forget about the kingdom, and remembrance loses priority. It loses even as being a place of focus. Most people get, entertained and distracted by the lusts of this world, and seek only that. Verse 108. Jesus said, "Who will drink from my mouth will become like me. I myself shall become he, and the things that are hidden will be revealed to him." Same thing. Knock and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. Seek and you shall find. Same thing as Matthew chapter 6. Make the kingdom your priority. Hunger for knowledge and revelation. Make it the focus of your life, that you want to know the secrets that have been stripped away, kept hidden from you by the Pharisees, but that Christ says he will reveal to you within the gospel that has been kept hidden since the foundations of the world. He wants you to know these things. And if you do your time and do your homework, do your research, Christ will reveal the secrets to you, and you will know all the things that we are talking about here. Last one, verse 113. His disciples said to him, "When will the kingdom come?" Jesus said, "It will not come by waiting for it. It will not be a matter of saying, 'Here it is,' or 'There it is.' Rather, the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and men do not see it." We are the kingdom of the Father, and it is already here. You are a part of it. I am a part of it. And for those of us, each one of you that is aspiring to come to remembrance of self, each one of you that is seeking knowledge of who you are, to know thyself, you are the kingdom of heaven already here on the earth. And the Father and the Son, they are living in us. And we are here to fulfill role, mission, and to accomplish our higher purpose, to fulfill our sacred vow, and to help others come to their own remembrance, so that they too can take part in what must be done, because the work is still great. There are still so many to awaken, so many to bring this knowledge to, so that they can have revelation and realize that the secrets are within them and that Christ lives within us, and that is the aspect of self which will give us a chance for salvation, redemption, and a return to our first estate. I want to, before we end this show, I want to replay something that a lot of you have heard, but because we have so many new listeners, a really quick short story called The Creation of Souls. And then after that, we'll end the show in song.
Unlike the human body, which was created on the sixth day, the soul was created on the first day, before anything else in the world. In that first hour, God created all souls and placed them in the highest heaven, where they remain until called to enter the body chosen for them. When a baby is conceived, Layla, the angel of night, brings the fertilized egg before God, who decides its fate, whether it will be a boy or a girl, rich or poor, strong or weak, beautiful or ugly, fat or thin, wise or foolish. Only one decision does God leave in the hands of the unborn soul, whether it will be righteous or wicked. Then God sends the angels of souls to the highest heaven to bring back the soul destined for that particular body. Always the soul rebels, for compared to the celestial world, the lower world is but a poor place, full of sorrow. But God reprimands the rebellious soul, saying, "Hush, for this is why I created you." And so the soul enters the unborn child and nestles quietly under the mother's breast. The next morning, a second angel carries the soul to paradise, where it sees all the righteous enjoying eternal happiness. If you follow God's Torah and live a worthy life, explains the angel, you will one day join these happy creatures here. But if not, and that night the angel takes the soul to the gates of Gehenna, where it sees the angels of destruction whipping the wicked souls with burning lashes. Such is the fate of those who have devoted their lives to sin and cruelty, the angel says. It is for you to choose for yourself. Between morning and night of that day, the angel reveals to the unborn soul its future life, where it will live, where it will die, and where it will be buried. And then, at the end of the 9 months, the angel announces that it is time for the soul to leave the warm refuge of the womb. "Oh no," cries the soul, "for that will be too much to bear." But the angel quickly silences it. "So God has decreed, against your will you were formed, and against your will you will be born, and against your will one day die. Such is your fate." And with that, the angel strikes the newborn baby under the nose, leaving a small cleft there. Then he extinguishes the light shining above its head, and instantly the soul forgets everything it has learned during the previous 9 months. And then the baby emerges into the world crying and afraid. Each soul spends the rest of its time on earth recovering all that it once knew.
Thank you, friends. I pray for you and your family and your loved ones. I pray that each one of you is brought to discernment. Seek out your relating with the Father and the Son and ask them to confirm all these things for you. Don't believe me or anybody else, but take it before them and ask them to bring you to confirmation on all these strange but esoteric truths. In Yahushua, Yahuwah's name I pray. God bless all. Good night.
When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you've always loved me. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you always loved me. I'm reminded every day of the past and how I hurt you. I wish that time was something I could undo. I don't deserve you, but now I see the only thing that really mattered was you and me. You made me whole. Why did I run? Why did I push away my one true love? If I could go back and change the past, I wouldn't take you for granted. I'd make things last. You're the only one, you're all I think about. I don't know why it took so long to figure it out. I searched so hard for what I had in you, but now I'm back where I started and I'm asking you for forgiveness for the things that I've done. Because I know when things got rough, I used to run. Thought I could handle life all on my own, but at rock bottom I was all alone except for you. You never left me, I only left you. When you accept me, you can change me. I know you can because you made me, and you have a plan. God forgive me. I know I've done wrong, but now I'm back again where I belong. I want to tell the whole world I finally found what's true, and that I've changed my ways, and it's all because of you. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you've always loved me. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you always loved me. I'm sorry, Lord, for all the things that I've done. I know I've acted like the prodigal son. It's like I wanted my inheritance now, and just like him, I was much too proud. I tried to serve two masters, and in the end, it wound up a disaster. I served myself instead of you, my own God. Thought I could make my own truth, my own laws. It seemed the more I tried to run and hide inside, I realized that I was living a lie. A backslided Christian living like a heathen, breathing in the types of things that invite demons. I was deceived by my sin and my pride, and my jealousy and envy and greed deep inside my soul. Had no direction or path. I was in search of something that I used to have. A foundation from a Christian home, and unconditional love that my family had shown me as a young child. I want that smile again. I want that joy and peace that I had within. And just like Psalm chapter 127, I wanted his sin, but now I'm back again. God is merciful, you're not alone. A shepherd seeks to bring his lost sheep home. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you've always loved me. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you always loved me.